thank you for coming in.
Yeah.
Your last 24 hours here in Cape Town before you moving back to the UK.
Yeah, like literally last 18 hours.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for doing this. Let's start, who is Gary Tarola? Give me a little bit of a background. And what I'm really also interested in the background, I want to know why the change, what the moment was, what got you into all of the stuff that you're into.
It's probably the world's biggest question. And I say that because I often work with personal brands. And if you cannot answer that one question, it's impossible to actually make the change that you dream of making, right? So it's for so long, as I mentioned, being a people pleaser, it was very difficult to understand what my essence was. So who am I? I mean, I went to private school. I had everything that you can dream of, right? And loved sport, wanted to be professional in rugby, went as high as I could and studied business, did uni, and pretty much did everything I didn't want to do. Took accounting at school, eventually dropped that for drama, and I was always trying to find myself. And then I stopped playing sports, and sport was something that kept me in check. It was the structure that I needed, right? And I'm a very physical person, as I think all humans should be and actually inherently are. And when I let that go, I was stuck in a corporate world of finance and startups that I was really good at. It was a talent, but it definitely wasn't a passion. So I was stuck in this corporate world where I was subconsciously just hating it. And I was looking for the highs, and I'll explain how this is relevant later. But I was looking for the highs, and I wasn't finding them where I was. It was boring. I was in offices wearing office clothes. It was death for me. So I found my highs in drugs and alcohol. And when I started binge drinking when I was 13, started smoking when I was 13, started smoking weed when I was 14. And then after school, when I was about 21, that's when I started my career in cocaine and all the harder drugs. But I'm grateful for the hard drugs because it took me down quite quickly. So I'm all or nothing. So anything that I've ever built in my life, any relationship, anything like that, I go full in. It's either nothing or all in. So I dragged myself off to rehab when I was like 25. And why I tell the story is because I actually didn't know who I was for 25 years. So who am I? So I am seemingly an outgoing person as an extrovert that people may see from the outside, but I'm actually an introvert with extroverted skills. People might see that I'm good at sales. I'm actually very passionate about networking. And I believe I'm very good at networking because I love relationships, right? So it's why I started my podcast way back then. I don't do it as much anymore. I love conversations because I love other opinions. I think I'm a philosopher at heart because I love being tested. I love understanding different opinions, and I love being wrong. I'm the first person to put my hands in the air, right? But I'm also the first person to point fingers if I think something's wrong. And I expect the same toward me. So that just naturally led me into the space of from startups to helping business people. But while I was helping individual entrepreneurs scale and build their businesses, I had to essentially get healthy myself, right? So I just come out of rehab from many years of drug binging and booze binging. And how I do it, I go all in. So I started studying. I went in and I started studying functional health, functional medicine, Ayurveda, traditional Chinese medicine. And I just went deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. And I think today there's so many people that I know, and I don't say this to blow smoke up my own ass, but I don't think there's many people I know that are studied in as many modalities as I am. And it's just because I geeked out. So you showed me your books. Like that was like my health shelf, right? And then
this after you came back out of rehab, that helped you get off the drugs, but you just weren't feeling healthy enough. Like what was driving?
Yeah, I knew I wrecked my body.
Yeah.
So I knew I had to bring myself back. Okay. So the first thing I did was, much against the advice of the counselors in rehab, I booked a marathon, full marathon, 42.2 kilometers at the Amsterdam Marathon. And they were like, you can't go to Amsterdam. I'm like, I'm not going to for reasons everyone else goes. So I jumped on a plane, and that was literally a week after I left rehab. I'd never run before. Ran the marathon. I think I did it in just over 4 hours. And then I got addicted. And then I got into long distance sports. And that's kind of how it started edging in, right? And like I said, I go all in. So as soon as I hit kind of that tipping point of knowledge, and I'll explain why genetically my brain works very differently. I'm able to synthesize a lot of data very quickly and be able to like turn that into enough knowledge to be able to help people and teach people essentially. And that's where it started, right? So that was maybe 12 years ago now.
And tell me about your father briefly, because a little birdie told me that there was a change with your father where he had some health issues, and I just wonder whether that story and that change and that overcoming was anything to do with your interest and desire to get knowledge and help your father. Is there?
Yeah, so it's interesting. So my dad was overweight, and he did suffer like 2 minor heart attacks. I'm talking about like he didn't even recognize it was a heart attack, and today he'll say they were. That's a different conversation.
Yeah.
But I know I was the catalyst for him changing. So when I changed, I went all in. And at that stage, maybe 10 years ago, maybe just a little bit longer, a plant-based diet or a vegan diet wasn't anything popular or anything major out there. Like it was still, the vegans were wearing hippie clothes, and it wasn't anything that was trending like it is now, or should I say maybe trending a year or two ago. So I started competing in comrades marathons, triathlons, full Ironmans, etc. Got my South African colors in short distance triathlon,
while still being obsessive about alternative medicine.
Yeah, so I'm studying this and I'm competing at a high level, but then I transitioned to a plant-based diet. Right. Okay. So there's a guy called Rich Roll. He's got an amazing podcast. He actually inspired me all the way back then. And I was like, if this guy can run on plants and fruit, then so can I. And I started doing it, and I didn't have any running partners. So I left the corporate world, moved back to Cape Town. Didn't really have anyone here. And my dad was starting to get healthy again. And he was cycling. And I didn't have a running partner. And my training run that day was to run from here, Somerset West, to Stellenbosch and back. So that's, for anyone that doesn't know, that's like a 40K training run. So I wanted someone to come with me. So he decided to trail me on a bicycle. And I believe it was about 10 or 15 kilometers in where he kind of looked at me to say like, shit, I can't keep up with my son.
Yeah, who's
running on a bicycle. And he's doing this. So my dad's a butcher for Perspective as well. And he's doing this all on plants as well. Like, how's this possible? And that was the catalyst for him to change. Right. And he consequently lost, obviously I helped him. I built a plan for him, and he lost 40 kilograms and he became super healthy. And that's where I realized that my place in this world was to really help people change their life around through health. Because without it, you really don't have anything. And, like there's that saying where a healthy person's got many wishes, a sick person's only got one. Right. And I think it's less of a goal for me to help people get healthy and more of a mission, especially with what I've just gone through with my wife as well, but we can chat about that later.
We'll come on to that in a second. So what are you doing now? What's your business? You're the longevity guy. You're doing a lot of stuff on social media.
Yeah.
Do you work with people individually? Just tell us a little bit about what are you doing today?
Yes, 100%. So I'm a founder of 3 businesses actually, but 2 particularly for health. So no, we go through all 3. So I've got the longevity lab where I've got a team of functional doctors, genetic experts, health coaches, fat loss experts, hormone specialists. So I don't purport to be the expert in absolutely everything. That's crazy. Anyone that's doing that, I think that's a marketing spiel.
Yeah.
I help people from a longevity aspect. So I prefer working with the athletes, and I prefer working with high performance. So I will take that role. Otherwise, we've got an amazing team of doctors and genetic experts, weight loss experts for females and males and all of that. So I built that team. It's an online longevity lab. So it's called the Longevity Lab. And then number 2 is we've got a company called Not Vanilla. So instead of being boring and vanilla, it's a branding agency where we help health coaches and doctors find their voice. So find their essence. Like, how do they help people? The reason I did that was because I reached a limit in my time where I couldn't scale more business language, or I couldn't impact more lives from a health perspective, just myself and my team. I didn't want to grow a bigger team. So then we made the decision to, with my startup and management consulting background, we decided to do what I did, but for other health coaches, so we could scale people through their patients.
Got it.
So we did that. And then my wife's a very well-known cordon bleu chef. And she changed all her cuisine to what people would deem biohacking food. So she does fine dining cuisine, and everything is whole foods, and it's plated as if you're at a Michelin star restaurant. So we've got a restaurant consultancy. We've opened up nearly 20 restaurants throughout the Middle East, Asia, Europe.
Wow.
So that's a third business, but that's kind of been on the burner at the moment, obviously, because my wife said,
tell me about Claire.
It's why I'm here, mate. So it's been an incredibly hard 18 months and frustrating, because my wife and I, Claire, we are, and if you guys want to look up, her name's Claire Sharon Roberto. Out of nowhere, on her birthday, 2023, we went out into the sand dunes in Dubai where we were living, and she was running down the sand dunes and fell and snapped her hip, which at the age of, at that time, 37, it's not really usual, right? Anyway, the doctors told us there's nothing to be alarmed by, and it's just a freak accident, which kind of in our heart we knew it wasn't. Anyway, as much as we asked for DEXA scans, which is bone density scans, they wouldn't really give us the referral because they said we don't need it. In hindsight, we very much did. So we'll get to that. So then she broke her hip, and at that moment, I would say about 70% of our entire life, entire business, entire income was coming from the restaurant consultancy at that stage, because we were busy on like massive projects. And in a time frame of that, with my wife being the face of the brand, the expertise of the company, that was the weak spot in the business. So if we ever get back to that, which we will, I will never just rely on her, and she won't just rely on herself, because it makes the business relatively weak, right? But anyway, in that moment, everything changed. She was in bed in a wheelchair for like 3-4 months. And it was kind of frustrating, because we're like literally we are the healthiest people we know. Like, I don't know anyone healthier. Like I can,
Brian Armstrong.
I literally can have this debate with so many people, because my wife and I are A types, like each other. So we're literally, both of us are like, yeah, we're all in.
So how did you find out?
So she broke up. Then 6 months later, she was just coming out of recovery, and she was walking and all of that. And we're like, okay, time is of the essence. We want to have children. So started going for hormone tests, and there was a hormone marker that was really high, prolactin, which is the breastfeeding hormone. So the endocrinologist turned to us to say, the prolactin's high. So we're like, well, what does that mean? She's like, well, you're either breastfeeding, which we weren't, or you've got a tumor, like very nonchalantly. Like, tumor, yeah. She's like, yeah, brain tumor, but don't worry. Most times it's benign. That's how they brushed it off.
Wow.
And Yeah, that's exactly what I said. And if you brush something off like that with my wife, like
You're
she's
in Dubai, or
yeah, we're in Dubai. The medical care in Dubai is just terrible. There's no willingness to search for care. There's no willingness to search for.
well, they didn't do the bone density scanner.
So no, so they still didn't. So anyway, we're like, what can we do? We went for the MRI. We found the brain tumor. You know, in our minds, we already knew, like, okay, the brain tumor is obviously causing her it's lack of menstrual cycle. I know I can speak about this because my wife speaks about it. And they wouldn't want to do anything. They forced her to go into pharmaceutical meds, and we like refused. And eventually we couldn't refuse because they wouldn't approve any surgery. So we're like, okay. My wife was very sure. I mean, she was upset. So she decided to take the pharmaceutical drugs.
Sorry, but at this point, had they done a scan and they've seen the tumor?
Yeah, they've seen the tumor.
And did they know that it was benign or not benign? Was it very, very big or small?
No, I mean, it's small. It's the positioning of the tumor. So the tumor is on the pituitary gland, which controls all your hormones. It controls your whole endocrine system. It controls, I mean, your ocular nerve goes through that area. I mean, it's a very, very tiny part of the brain. Okay. So in the medical world, because it was so tiny, they don't see relevance to symptoms. But it's small, but it's benign, but it's
affecting.
But because the medical industry, and I go hard on this because it's a big passion of mine to completely change the medical industry, and we can go into that. There is no adjustment for bioindividuality, meaning in the medical field, you get taught a one size fits all, right? So if you have this benign tumor and it's under this size, then these are the symptoms. But how can that be? People have different epigenetic circumstances, meaning environment. They live in different cities, different pollution, different stresses, all of that. People have different genetic bodies. There's just so many data points and variables that play into it that it cannot be a one size fits all. It doesn't matter for any disease. I can go through absolutely everyone. And every single disease, chronic disease, is reversible. Like there is not one that's not reversible. I'm talking from like hospice level cancer. It's reversible, right? Anyway, so they looked at us and said, you have to take this med, and the med is a Parkinson's drug. It's cabergoline. They say it's got a very low chance of it. So it doesn't remove the tumor. All it does is bring the prolactin down. And when the prolactin's high, estrogen's low. So think about when you're breastfeeding. So that hormone, the body's amazing, right? That hormone goes up, so the estrogen goes low, so that you can actually be a functioning breastfeeding mother. And so they told us it's a Parkinson's drug. You're going to take a smaller dose, and all it's going to do is going to lower the prolactin, and you're going to have to be on for the rest of your life, because as soon as you come off the dose,
to you, that was like a red rag to the bull. You're like, I want to. Let's sort out the cause.
I was like,
that's like asking, yeah.
Because I mean, this is a new world to me, right? So I'm also kind of trying to take it in and respect the diagnosis, respect their advice. You're dealing with people, the endocrinologists, they've studied and gone to school for this specific craft for like probably 8 years, right?
Yeah.
So you want to the beginning respect it, but you very quickly pick up on energy where there's like a lack of care or a lack of willingness to test societal norms that it's possible. And I'll give you an example, because my first question is, what has caused this? And I've yet to meet a doctor that's able to give me an answer to that question. One, because they're either not allowed to,
or they don't know.
Because you have to hit a threshold of how many research papers, double-blind, placebo, peer-reviewed research papers that are actually showing that same result, right? But in my opinion, if there's one result, it means it's possible.
It's a possibility.
And that's more in your industry, right? So it's like, the mind is a powerful thing. So anyway, cut a long story short, my wife took the cabergoline, and the side effects were just next level. Like manic depressants, that's not her. Zero energy. She slept at the floor at my desk. all day, every day. She was hallucinating. She was dizzy. She was just like, she couldn't live like that, like no ways. And that was on half the dosage. So then they said to us, well, it's impossible. It's impossible she's experiencing this on lower dosage. And I said, but why? It's like, because this doesn't happen with anyone. I'm like, well, this is your first case. My wife, Claire, is very sensitive to everything. Medication, she can smell things very far away. She can hear things really loudly. Light is more brighter. It's why she plays the violin beautifully. It's why her, as a chef,
part of her gift.
It's her gift. Her attention to detail, and genetically we tested her. It's right there. So her serotonin and dopamine pathways are highly sensitive.
Interesting.
So she gets ill if someone's smoking next to her, and she smells perfume. But so that's a negative in that instance. But in the instance where she's creating a beautiful dish, she can literally deconstruct that entire dish without knowing what's in it, and she can tell you exactly what spices are in there and exactly what flour.
You've got this hypersensitivity that didn't go well with the drugs.
Yeah, but they still don't understand this, right? So they say it's impossible. The literature doesn't say this. So then we started looking elsewhere. So we found a surgeon in South Africa because Dubai wasn't going to operate. We found a surgeon in South Africa that's Dr. David Rutowski. If anyone wants the best neurosurgeon, literally, I've yet to meet anyone like him. He's insane. He's got a whole team, and he leads a pituitary gland institute.
Wow.
And anyway, he accepted the surgery. Our Dubai insurance declined the surgery, so we decided to pay out of pocket even, because everyone's telling us that the surgery's going to do nothing. Nothing's going to happen, right? Anyway, I mean, today she had the surgery a month ago. As soon as she had the surgery, the very next morning, her prolactin was normal, right?
Wow.
Her hormones have balanced out immediately, and all the doctors, all the specialists, doesn't matter, even if they're really good, all looked at us and said, I can't believe it. And Claire said the same thing to every single person, every nurse, every doctor. I told you so.
It's quite, I mean, it's frustrating. I mean, I won't bore you with a personal anecdote, but I've been there before with something to do with my gut, and I had alternative medicine, and then I was speaking to a traditional doctor as well. And I'm like trying to sense check the alternative stuff with the mainstream. I'm like, yes, but if you're giving me this, what's it actually doing? But is it actually getting to the cause? And it was like I was talking to somebody that was kind of on a loop, because he kept on trying to give me some random answer. But I'm like, yeah, but you haven't answered the question. Yeah, but what about this? Is it? And like you said, it's either it's kind of computer says no, they don't know. It's not what they're trained for. And it could be incredibly frustrating. And I guess there's this general doubt and cynicism around the establishment now. People are questioning everything around, whether it's food or drugs or medicine, and it can almost drive one crazy. Like I think we would probably share some tendencies when we almost, when you get let down here, you start questioning everyone, and then you drive yourself mad because you've got to become an expert in everything, and then you got to kind of trust some people.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you go absolutely crazy. But I guess, and listening to a lot of your content, this is where, there's absolutely a place for traditional medicine, and being a parent now to very young kids. The narrative is, we want to avoid antibiotics at all costs because we know what damage it can do if it's overprescribed. 100%. But, my son had salmonella the other day, and, then he had, pneumonia, and, we didn't have a choice. We had to give antibiotics because kids used to die of these things.
100%.
Give antibiotics. It's kind of like it's finding the blend. And I guess that's,
I think that's what it is, right? I think it's I know it's the blend. And the issue is, and I'll tell you, I've got bones to pick with Western medicine as well as functional medicine, not even functional medicine, like functional health, because functional medicine is, I mean, it's 1 degree away from Western medicine. Ego is such a big thing, right? And my whole premise is that the doctors and Western medicine needs to team up with functional health experts. Because here's the thing. If we start requiring, say, a neurosurgeon to become experts in literally operating on a brain, as well as nutrition, as well as exercise, as well as, you're going to get this jack of all trades.
Yeah.
And when someone's opening my head to operate on my brain, I don't want a jack of all trades, right? But here's the thing. There's no cohesiveness between a neurosurgeon and a nutritionist. Now there are some cases, right? So like our team here that operate on Claire's brain was amazing. You know, he's a part of a team of endocrinologists and oncologists, whatever the case is. But I do believe that we have to come to a conclusion, and doctors have to admit that they're not going to medical school to learn about nutrition. They get 4 hours training, if that. You know, it's different in different countries. Health coaches have no idea how medicine works. Maybe we can use AI now. But if we operate as a team, all of a sudden, the conversation we had at the beginning, where we're actually like pack animals, we want to belong. If we can overcome the obstacle of trying to be successful on our own, we get to go so much further, and we can get to help so many more patients if we can actually just join forces. And it can be in different aspects, you know, like a general practitioner, in my opinion, should always prioritize prevention, which with prevention, everyone knows this. It's diets, it's diet, nutrition, getting your micronutrients in. It's making sure you don't have toxins in the body, exercise, sleep. It's like, that's not a doctor's place, you know? So like, team up with a nutritionist or a health coach so they can help someone before and after, right? Medication has saved so many lives. You're right, you know, it was 70 years ago, kids died from salmonella. You know, we were able to intentionally use medication, but now you can go into anyone's house. It's like, oh, you're sniffing, taking antibiotics, you know?
I think that's so cool about what you're doing, because it's very similar to what I'm doing in the personal development space, in so much that when I got into all this stuff, like you got into all the health stuff, you're like, well, there's so many different verticals. And, you know, just knowing about one thing on its own is only one piece of the puzzle, you know? And so by learning about quite a lot, you know, even if it's a mile long and an inch deep, you've got an awareness and a degree of knowledge around all sorts of things around health. And you're able to look at a person and speak holistically and from a multi-dimensional place. And depending on where they are, whether it's just preventative or whether they've got something severe, you can give them a perspective and a plan. And when they need to go and see a specialist, you can refer them. And it's very similar to what I'm doing with personal development. You know, everything, my whole thing is, you know, if you really want to make change, if you're not where you want to be, you want to get from here to here, there's all sorts of steps along the way, from actually wanting to change to, you know, your body baseline and then some essentials, mindset stuff, and then knowing thyself, and then really taking responsibility, then getting clarity, then being consistent. And within all of those, there's your psychology, you've got executive coaching, you've got health and nutrition, but you got, you know, meditation, all sorts of different things. But by bringing those components together, people have more chance of actually getting from here to here, because you're pulling in those different things. And I'm sure that when you sit with one of your clients or one of your high performers, when you're listening to what they need, it's a holistic approach, tends to be. And if it needs specialization where you haven't done 2 decades, you're like, go and speak to this person. And then come back and let's bring those other pieces of the puzzle along. I want to talk about the stress thing quickly, because it's a big passion of mine. And I'm a believer that it's kind of like, you can do everything, but if you're stressed as hell and you're in your sympathetic nervous system, your flight or fight, you got people that, you know, they have their green goddesses, they're having their peptides, they're doing everything that you're talking about, but their nervous system is a wreck. They're stressed, they're anxious, and, you know, your regenerative system, your immune system, your digestive system is not working properly because of that. So what are your thoughts on that being like that's a central pillar that needs to be dealt with for everything else to work?
Well,
Right?
so with my thoughts is on the spot, Claire and I decided to leave Dubai after 8 years and literally move our entire life into rural England, where we are tomorrow flying in and going to look for a piece of land, start growing our own food, having solar so we don't have to be connected to government systems either. So we don't have to be reliant on, like, hey, you didn't have this medical vaccine, so you're not gonna have electricity. Like, I truly believe we headed that way. So not just from a protecting the family point of view, but also from a health point of view. We want to be able to truly be able to walk out and not breathe in fumes and toxins and really get regulated by the frequency of nature. So if we go into frequency medicine, right, without sounding woo-woo, if you look at literally the negative ions of nature, if you compare that to your frequency when you're in a stress state, it's the exact opposite. If you compare it to the frequency of cancer, because you can measure it, I'm not being woo-woo now, I'm not just like mentioning. If you measure the frequency of a cancer cell, it's the exact opposite to a forest. It's the exact opposite to an ocean. There's no one really that can tell me that if they just go lie in a forest or they jump into an ocean, they don't feel like that kind of feeling. So that's my answer.
Like, you want to put yourself in that.
It's inconvenient what we've had to do, right? So we decided we have to move because over the next 40, 50, 60 years, it's, people talk about compound interest and they're trying to find the best investments. The best investment is your health. And
the compound interest of the right frequency in your body.
Yeah.
Not having stress.
It's just compiles and compiles and compiles. Stress is healthy to a certain degree, right? So that's why sauna is healthy. It's a good stressor because it stimulates stem cell growth, right? Same way with ice bathing. For some people don't have that thermoregulation gene, so then it actually can make you increase weight, believe it or not. Exercising, right? So if you go exercise, you're pushing your body, you're actually damaging your body exercising, but it's enough. But then you can over exercise, right? And there's something that Tony Robbins says, a lesson that Tony Robbins always says that he learned in health. And he always said, I'll never forget this actually, because it took my mind away from triathlon. And he said, like, to be truly healthy, to exercise, you want to exercise to have energy, not deplete your energy, right? You don't want to go cycle 100 Ks in the morning and then you can't be with your kids for lunch, right? It's like, what's the point? Like, what is the point?
Yeah, I like that. It's such a good reminder. Okay, so I mean, my mind's dancing around, right?
Because to summarize that, I would say you need to bring in practices of a stress-free life. And I do believe that's at home. And if you do work at home, you're going to have to be very strict with where you work in the home and strict timelines. Now, we do go through seasons because I don't believe in balance in life. I believe, as an entrepreneur myself and as someone, I believe we seasons. Sometimes you're going to have a sprint to, launch a product, launch a team, train a team, or whatever the case is, have many patients that are potentially on the verge of dying. It's like, I'm not going to sleep when I know I have to do something like that. But then it's in blocks, right? So you do need those blocks of downtime to recalibrate.
But you agree with the adage that, if we're too stressed for too much time, that's kind of what burnout does, isn't it? It's basically starving all the other functions of the body working properly, and then something gives. Do you agree that trying to manage your stress levels and not being in fight or flight all the time and always on and always anxious is one of the main precursors? It's almost like if you're not managing that, then a lot of the other stuff is kind of pointless.
Yeah, of course, because what does stress do, right? So stress, a big stressful situation or anger, immediately within 1 minute of experiencing that experience, that charge of literally your whole world's changed, it shuts your immune system off for 5 hours minimum 5 hours, right? So that's that aspect. Your digestive system completely stops working. Why? Because biologically speaking, when we get into a flight or fight mode, it was built into our system 1,000 years ago when we had, I know everyone says this, but it's true, when a tiger's chasing us, a lion's chasing us, or maybe someone's about to stab you, or whatever the case is, right? So what happens? Your digestive system switches off, the blood circulation doesn't go there, and it goes into your limbs so that you can be ready to run. Now, when we go to the gym in a stress-free state, we have to warm up, right? So we have to get the blood into our limbs. Otherwise, we pull a muscle. But biologically, we don't need that when we are stressed and we get switched on like this. So what happens? We're not digesting. So then all of a sudden, micronutrients, anything that you're putting into your body is not being pulled apart into the macronutrients and the micronutrients that we need to provide energy to our mitochondria and outer cells. So now we don't have that aspect either, right? We get to a point where our inflammatory markers go through the roof, right, with stress, and so that's in a split second.
So if that's carrying on a long period of time, it does a lot of damage.
So and it tightens your vagus nerve. So your vagus nerve, pretty much one of your main nerves. That's when you talk about parasympathetic, sympathetic, runs literally from just kind of behind your ear all the way down through your gut, and down. That you can physically feel the tightness of that. So that's why massaging is amazing. Like physical therapy is amazing. But I think stress is probably one of the biggest causes of chronic illness, right? Yeah, completely. You want, I think people need to readjust their way they think about health. Everything is 2025, like I suppose for human existence for the last 40 years, everything's been so reductionist. Everything's been reductionist, and everyone's required a one-size-fits-all for many reasons, right? If you've got a business, if you don't have a one-size-fits-all product or program, you can't scale it that easily, right? If something's by individual, it's very hard to scale that as a business. From a health point of view, you don't want to let go of convenience, so you want just someone to tell you, like, this is what you have to do every single day of your life, right? But unfortunately, like, that is inconvenient, number one. And two, if you go travel to France now, you're going to need a different kind of health protocol because it's going to be different weather. It's going to be just like a different environment. So we have to start just focusing on the simple things. We have to think, like, how did the rural, poorer cultures live like 100 years ago? Like, if we think of that, like, naturally everything was organic, right? So naturally they didn't really have the means to drive everywhere, so they walked everywhere, right? So they spend more time outside. They were more mobile. Walking is probably the best exercise. People, like, leave the gym. The gym's got like LED lights. I don't know, we're using lights now, but like, we can go into that. If we look at circadian rhythm biology, the lighting of today is killing our mitochondrial health like six love.
Really?
Like, completely. And you can see the digression, like the increase in disease as the spectrum of light has changed from when we only had fire as light all the way into the incandescent light bulb, all the way into these beautiful green friendly, environmentally friendly LED lights that last like 5 years, and they're so cheap to run on electricity. Yeah, like, cool. That's great. You're saving money, but you're killing health.
Really? What's the light? What's that doing?
So they've done a study actually in office blocks that concentration levels decreased, and I'm going to
horrible. Those strobe lights.
Yeah, so the strobe lights, but it's very similar to even the small LED light bulbs we have. Productivity and concentration levels, I think, went down upwards of like 40% or something.
Really?
It's dramatically penetrating. It's literally deadening our cells. Like, our cells are like, they don't know what to do with it, because light traditionally has been a nutrient. So if you think about food,
it's like light pollution almost, getting the wrong light.
100%. And it stimulates your brain. So it also stimulates your serotonin and dopamine is so wide.
So is that why these yellow glasses people have, for that reason?
Yeah. Part of it? So I would say, it's also light spectrum. So the red ones block nearly 100% of blue light. So the blue light is the blue light's not bad because you get blue light from the sun, but the too much blue light is terrible, and especially when there is no red light spectrum in it.
Okay.
So and then the blue light spectrum, obviously once the sun's gone down, biologically your body doesn't know what's going on because it's not built to receive blue light. So TV, cell phones, mobile phones, pretty much watch. Luckily, I mean, the new Garmin's pretty cool because I can actually turn on red mode. I turn on red mode on my phone now. I know we can't do everything perfectly, but we have to at least try. We have to try and dim our lights at night.
Yeah.
You know,
I listened to what you said about the Whoop that you
yeah,
put on your wrist.
yeah.
You chucked it in the bin, didn't you?
Yeah, I mean, I completely did. I mean, I try to reach out to Whoop because I actually love what Whoop's doing. Because I think there's this careful balance between living like a caveman next to a fireplace and enjoying the luxuries. I love the luxuries, right? I love the fact that we can, you know, like we can go on our phones, answer a work email, the next minute buy a Range Rover in a different country, then go on and buy insurance.
Yeah, that's great.
And then book your flight to fly to that country, and then make sure that you've ordered your groceries to be delivered to the Airbnb that you booked on your phone for when it's amazing, right? So it's like, it's the luxuries of life. We have to use it intentionally though, because if we start doing 12-hour days in front of a computer, our eye health is going to be completely.
So with the Whoop, what's wrong with the Whoop?
So all these devices, when they are connected via Bluetooth to your phone, because that's how they are uploading data, right? Or to the computer, whether it's a Garmin, Whoop, Aura Ring, doesn't matter, a Superhuman, whatever. There's so many rings now. Samsung's got one. When that Bluetooth is on, AirPods are the worst. We'll get there. Is that the EMFs, the electromagnetic field, right? Think of a microwave, right? It's on your body the whole time. So you talk about vibration, you talk about frequency. It's literally electricity going through you all the time, all the time. And you can get an EMF reading meter and you can read it. It's for this very reason why I won't step a foot into a Tesla. The Tesla's EMF reading is higher than a microwave. Just for perspective.
And what's the worst thing that does to your body?
So what does a microwave do to food? Do you know how it heats food? I'm not trying to test you.
No, I actually don't really.
So it heats it from the inside. So it vibrates the particles inside to start heating from within. So it starts vibrating the water particles within the food, right?
Mhm.
So the body is made up of what? It's 60% water, but that's by weight. Your body is made up 99% water if you take it by particle amount.
Okay.
So you sit in these machines and they're literally vibrating you from the inside. But experts won't say words about that.
And what's wrong with that? I mean, it doesn't sound very good, but what?
So you'll get cellular death. You will create a negative charge on your cells. You know, it will, if you have got predisposition to Alzheimer's, it could speed up that progression, cancers, etc. But we're talking about the opposite frequency of nature again.
Interesting.
So we talk about stress, how stress changes the body like this, right? So does EMF. We're seeing, and I'll give you an example. When I was wearing my Whoop, because people say like, if you don't want to buy an EMF reading meter, cool, because they're probably about, in this country, you can buy one for like 2,000 Rand, but they're anything between $100 to $300. You can just say anything, and you'll see it. Your electricity to a certain degree has it, right? But again, it's exposure to it. So my computer at home, I won't use Bluetooth, a mouse or keyboard. When I use that, I've got old rugby injuries. My knuckles hurt. I started getting arthritis. The Whoop caused such arthritis in my left hand.
Did it? How's the Whoop different to the Garmin?
So the Whoop, you can't turn on airplane mode. It's a simple software upgrade, and they won't reply to me. And people say, well, maybe they don't know. It's impossible that they don't know.
If you're listening,
like literally,
got a message here.
I promise you, I'll challenge anyone at Whoop. I'll challenge anyone at Whoop to have this conversation with me, because a lot of experts will say it does no harm to the body. There's no research to support it. But the research of EMFs are not supported. There's more money behind the EMF producing products.
I'm with you.
You know what I mean? So is there research? Yes, there is. Has it been shadowed? For sure it has, because you can find over 1,000 papers showing you the negative effects of EMFs. Now, there's varying degrees of it, obviously. But my whole thing is, let's just think logically. Do I want a device that's pinging, trying to find a phone 24/7, right? The Aura, you can turn onto airplane mode. So Aura Ring, you can.
But if you turn them onto airplane mode, are they then unable to collect the data?
Yeah, then I can't collect the data. So when you want to collect the data, take it off and then put it on Bluetooth, or at least.
No. I mean, like let's say you're wearing the Whoop or you're wearing the Aura.
It stores on the device.
So it can't be like, let's say you're wearing the Whoop and it's tracking your sleep.
Yeah.
Can you have it on airplane mode while you're sleeping and it still
tracks the sleep? Yeah, of course.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, 100%.
So switching off the airplane mode is only stopping it connect with another device.
100%.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
I see. Okay.
So like my
that
phone
makes total sense.
So like even my phone, I mean, phones are terrible. Like when it comes to like EMF exposure, like I'm not willing to risk. If I know that, is it more inconvenient? Of course it is. Like, of course, my phone, if it's on me and I'm traveling, it's on airplane mode. So like everyone knows that. Everyone in my family knows that, right? So it's like I'll put it back on line once I'm at my desk or once I've stopped the car. I'll check it. I mean, I'll check it a lot. I run a business, right? But are there times that I leave it in my pocket for 5 minutes because I'm waiting for a call? Like, yes, but I also know I'm frying my nuts. You know, it's like...
I remember I met Dave Asprey once, and he did a talk. You know, he's a famous biohacking guy, and he always said he had these special trousers made because, you know, he did the bone density. You know, he always used to have his phone in this pocket, and he had the bone density done. And it was totally different to this to this leg, and he had these special trousers made so, you know, he doesn't get the radiation, whatever, or whatever it is. But I think probably a lot of people are probably quite similar to me in respect that we're having this conversation now, and I heard that from Dave Asprey 7 or 8 years ago, and you think, shit, this is all quite scary stuff. I need to do something, but it's so easy just to slip back into your life through convenience.
Convenience,
and you don't, and it's like, shit, you know, there's like 100 things that I should probably change. So like, where do you start? What do you do?
They are.
So what I'd like to do, because we've jumped around a little, great, and everyone's probably thinking, wow, that was really interesting. But maybe we could go through. I want to do two things. Okay. So I want to talk about the DNA testing, because I think that's something that people are really interested in. And you've already mentioned that, you know, with your wife, you know, she was hypersensitive to things, and that came up in the DNA test. So that's like a blessing and a curse, right? And then also the ice bath didn't really work with her because of her results, right? So I want to talk about that. And also then I think I'm just trying to think the most effective way. I mean, people can check out your Instagram with a lot of your content. But I'd like to kind of go through like a typical day, so we can like quickly like fire off a bunch of things, like the morning and the supplements and the ice baths and the saunas and the microplastics and the exercise, like, you know, do a bit of a myth buster all the way through, like what an easy thing people can do. You know, what maybe a good way of doing it might be to be like, what's the standard thing people are doing, why that's bad, and how they can make it better.
100%. I don't think anyone is intentionally bad. I believe the world has been created through convenience, and I think it's a very, very, very hard world to live in unhealthy. Now, that's varying degrees, because there is a lot of lazy people out there. A lot of lazy people that don't care. And I'm going to say this to you. If you've got a family and you choose not to be healthy, essentially you're putting pressure on your family, because you may be 30, 40 now and unhealthy, but do you want your wife or husband to look after you in a wheelchair when you're older? Like, you know, like I guarantee you when you're 90, you'd prefer to hike up a mountain than be in an old age home, right? Or dead. You know, for most people, that's the reality. Right? Genetically speaking, we are all wired and we're built to live to 120. Like if you look at it, and that translates in every religious text as well. If you look in the Quran, you look in the Bible, you look in the Torah, it's all the same, right? Why is that? The science of genetics shows the genetic body lives to 120. The only reason we're living, everyone's living life minus 30, life minus 40, because one, okay, cool. There's chemtrails in the air. There's glyphosates and all that. It's difficult, right? But we're just prioritizing convenience, right? And a lot of people are too scared to...
Convenience and comfort,
Convenience, comfort. But I also understand it's been designed, you know, McDonald's has 10 highly qualified psychiatrists just working on the flavor of their cheese for their Big Mac. Like, do people understand? Like,
psychiatrists.
It's psychiatrists to work on the addictive nature of it. So like we're essentially World War III today is trying to be healthy, right? And I get it. If people want to try, I'm here to help, right? It is.
So let's go through some specifics. So let's talk about sauna and ice baths, like good or bad.
I'm going to walk you through my day.
Okay, let's do that. Yeah.
And everything that I've learned.
What you used to do, what you, yeah, exactly.
So I'm a big believer in getting a functional gene test, right? I'm qualified in functional genetics, genomics as well, which often can be called nutrigenomics tests. You test like anything between like 90 and 200 different genes. These are the genes that are, I say manipulated. You're able to manipulate them. You can't change your genes structurally. There's CRISPR, which they're exploring. It's still new, so don't do it yet. CRISPR basically restructures your genes. It's for the purposes of people if they're born with a genetic disorder, Down syndrome, etc. But it's still very early days, so don't experiment. But you can't structurally change your genes yet, right? What this means is you are able to, your genes react to the environment around you, right? So use Claire as an example. So Claire's genes react. She's got a weak detox system. She's also got a hyperactive, her serotonin and dopamine receptors genetics are very sensitive. So when there's smoke, there's perfumes and all that, she reacts to the environment. Those genes don't react and doesn't cause like disease, because some people can work in a perfume factory or in a mine and they've got the same genetics and then they get a disease. What's the cause, doc? I don't know. Must be the coal, right? But it's not. It's the coal and the gene. Because I can show you many families. The wife gets mold poisoning and the husband doesn't. Husband's like, why are you so sick all the time? It's like impossible. 10 years later, they find mold in the mattress. Literally, I have a case like this. Find mold in the mattress. It doesn't make sense. The husband's like, I'm not sick. Kids are not sick. You get tested and she's got like a weakened detox system. She's maybe missing GSTM1, which is the detox gene in your gut, right? People have IBS. That's the greatest. That diagnosis is the worst diagnosis because doctors will give that to you if they don't know what the cause is or what it is, right? But I say that because genetics is your bio-individuality. If you can get a functional gene test, if you want to, just message me on Instagram. I've got no affiliation with the actual genetic companies. I just know which ones protect your data, so they don't use it to create pharmaceutical drugs, and ones that are actually effective. There's many labs out there that their interpretations are not as accurate because it costs quite a lot to set up a lab. So anyway, genetic test, then you've got some black and white data on essentially what you require, because I can test you genetically and I can see if you metabolize, meaning digest fats or carbohydrates better, right? I can test whether you've got a thermogenic gene, right? Which means if you don't have a thermoregulation gene and you get into an ice bath continuously, you're going to put more stress in your body and you can actually start increasing weight. A thermoregulation gene it's responsible for regulating your thermo of the body, like your hot and cold, right? You've got genes responsible for early graying, for balding. You've got it for, so for example, for me, I'm not vegan anymore. Categorically, I started tearing the ligaments in my hip, etc. Everyone told me it's overtraining. I said it's impossible. And once I had finished studying genetics and understood my body, I didn't have a bean gene. So there's a gene called FUT2. And there's variations of each gene, right? So if you've got GG or AA, you don't have the ability to digest beans, which is your main protein source. So you get your protein powders and all that. Mm-hmm. And protein is, you've got essential fatty acids. You've got essential amino acids. You do not have essential carbohydrates.
Right.
Right. So carbohydrates are important for the glucose getting into the body. But
they're not as important as the meat and protein.
You live without the amino acids, and it doesn't have to be meat, as long as you're getting the amino acid profile. So for me, you can get it in a vegan diet. You can, categorically. Yeah. The data shows that only 4.8% of people are genetically able to be vegan. So yes, you can follow Rich Roll. Rich Roll's probably within that 4.8%. Then he thrives. But for people like me, I didn't, right? for someone like Claire, she's perfect. She can actually be on a vegan diet. Like, she's perfect.
But you can get the genetic testing,
Yep.
your DNA, and that'll tell you all sorts of things about what works, what doesn't, what you're susceptible to, what supplements you might need, which foods might not agree with you, what you might be susceptible in terms of, health problems as you get older. And then you got all this data, and you can kind of be more bespoke about how you're living your life. And
it tells you how your body works. So like, if you think about it, if you buy a house, what's the first thing you want? You want the blueprint, right? Everyone looks at their health from a symptom point of view. Where are you at right now? You are only where you're at right now due to how you've lived, right? Plus your genetic body. Your genetic body is what you're born with. So the delta difference between where your health is today and where your health was when you're born, because when you're born, most people are the healthiest they are, right? The delta difference is because we've lived not in accordance with what our body requires. Our body, every one of our cells is essentially crying out, asking for something, right? And then our cells communicate too. So cellular communication, EMFs will shut it down if people want. I've actually got, I will say this, I've got an EMF document, like literally it's free of charge. I'm really just passionate about people knowing about EMFs. We won't chat more about
EMFs are...
So the electromagnetic fields from microwaves, electric cars, devices. If you want that, just message me on Instagram because I'll send it to you. So what do we do during a day? I would recommend get a genetic test.
Yeah.
Right? Genetic tests are not the cheapest around. They go anything between $150 to $500. I highly recommend it. You don't have to do them more than once.
What's the name? When I go and look, because we were talking about this the other day, we want to get a genetic test, and I just want the one that's going to give me like all the data I need. So I don't want one that's going to miss out some stuff. So
it is tricky. So you're not doing the full genetic panel testing 22,000 genes in your entire genome. So you're a full genome sequencing, because there is no relevance to that when you are looking at functional health, right?
Okay.
It's different if you're trying to find a rare disease that you
so
have.
Which one, if I don't want to, I don't want to skimp on it.
Yeah.
But I want to, I don't want to pay tens of thousands of pounds. But I want to go, I don't want to be, I basically don't want to be conned into buying the expensive one unless I have to, if you know what I mean. Like
100%. So there's a company called the DNA Company that's based in the US, in Kentucky. I know the founder very well. I work alongside the founder. The founder's Cash Khan. A lot of people might know him. Dave Asprey actually invested in Cash Khan's business into the genetic lab I'm talking about.
Okay.
Same as Stephen Gundry, same as all these people, right? It's a very well-respected lab. I highly trust them. They don't share data. And then there's another Scandinavian company that also does it. I'm trying to arrange the launch of it in South Africa because it'll be way cheaper. But you're looking at different pricing between $150 to $500. If $500 at the DNA company is too much for you, I said it depends which country you're in. Message me on Instagram. I'll have my team reach out and see what country you're in, and maybe get a price that suits your country wherever you are, because I know exchange rates are. American diagnostics are normally a lot more expensive. I'll vouch for the DNA company for now. But if people need cheaper, then just let me know.
Okay.
And then once you have that, the issue is FDA legislation doesn't allow you to give all full 100% patient data without the delivery of a doctor or an expert in the field. For protection. Protection in terms of if someone is not as... Look, I'm not a doctor, but I'm way more studied than a doctor when it comes to functional health. But I know not everyone is like myself. So if you're going to take data and you're just going to start self-interpreting it, it can be dangerous, right? So if you want your full data, I recommend working with the functional genetic experts.
Got it. For that interpretation.
Because you're going to get a DNA test, you're going to get your DNA SNPs, right? Which is all the DNA, like the DNA that they're testing.
Yeah.
SNPs are the variations of those DNA, right? So there's like 2 to 4 different variations of each gene, right? Now you're going to get that, but where it makes a difference is understanding how those genes interact with your current world, your current environments, because they interact differently, right? They also are very different if you are Southeast Asian, right? You can have the same gene as a Southeast Asian guy, same age, everything, and essentially you interpret it slightly different because it reacts differently.
Okay, so once you've got that data, you're armed with, you're able to make different decisions about how you're going to go about your day.
100%. So it's from the brain to your toes. So it'll tell you your cardiovascular health. It'll tell you like, would you weaken your heart by doing cardio exercise, or do you strengthen your heart?
Is coffee good or bad?
Do you metabolize coffee fast? Like, what kind of foods do you want? What supplements do you need at what dosage? Right now, so those tests I've spoken about are not going to give you the dosage of the supplementation, right? Because they're like legally not allowed to. But if you work with a functional expert, like anyone on my team, they'll be able to literally tell you, take 400 milligrams of magnesium, bisglycinate.
And how much would that change? Because I understand that from the DNA testing, you can get bespoke vitamins and supplements for what your body needs.
Yeah.
But then you would maybe be prescribed certain dosages and vitamins and supplements. But then as time goes on and, the future of healthcare, I think we can all imagine it, your Whoop is giving you a reading in the morning, what your deficient is, your iron is a bit too low, you're dehydrated, and that sends a message to your, your bullet that is like, has all these printer cartridges in, and it makes what you need for that particular day. How much does it, are those two, how much is that of that? That's like daily regulation, and this is like what you need consistently.
Yeah, so it's a good question. So obviously you're testing your DNA, you're testing the blueprint of your body, right? So that will never change. But when you test DNA, what you're actually testing is the predisposition of your body. Meaning, if you've got APOE, a gene APOE 44, so the variation 44, that you are at that, you have the highest chance of developing Alzheimer's or dementia.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
Now, does that mean you're going to get Alzheimer's and dementia? No, it's not.
But you should definitely take your Omega every day.
Well, depending if you need it, right? So you don't necessarily, you don't necessarily need to supplement on every single gene. You essentially need to cater where the issues are.
Okay.
And
in that circumstance, like, if you've got a predisposition to Alzheimer's, then that, as I understand, Omega is good to prevent that.
So omegas are good, but then we can go. I mean, I always like say omegas are good, but not all omegas. 99% of omegas are not good, right? Because when you pull fish oil out, it's rancid. When you're pulling fish oil out, what fish is it? Is it farm fish? Is it?
This is where you go. You can go fucking crazy, right? You're trying to do the right thing, and there's like now I've got to do all the research on omegas, which starts to get.
And a quick one on that, because people are going to wonder, you want to get, there's companies like Nordic Naturals, there's companies that essentially are wild caught. So they're extracting from wild caught. But then you also have to ask yourself the question of like, it's wild caught, you're extracting oil, which is a concentrated version of that fish, right? Which is, if it's got mercury, then it's going to be a concentrated form of mercury, which is heavy metals, which is going to, and that's reality. That's what our oceans are made up of right now, right? So there's nothing I can do about it. There's more plastic in fish than anything. And I don't say this to scare people. What I want people to do is ask the question, what's the source of my food? And is it clean? Like, you have to ask that question. And trust me, guys, I set up restaurants. Restaurants, we don't do this, but restaurants lie. So like, if you ask the waiter doesn't know. Call the manager. Like, if you are really serious about your health, I will call the manager. I've seen my wife walk into kitchens before and caught restaurants lying. And I'm talking about restaurants that are very cleverly branded as a healthy restaurant.
So not getting that.
There's so many in Cape Town. I mean, I'm going to be hated for saying this, but there's so many in Cape Town that actually are not organic, even though they feel and look organic. And so anyway, I digress, but to go back to that.
While we're on the DNA testing, what other tests can people take from a sort of baseline? Right, we want to get as many facts as possible around the individual self to then make decisions going forward. A blood test, for example. How does one know how many chemicals or microplastics or heavy metals one has has onboarded to then make decisions about how to go forward.
Yeah. So my favorite testing is obviously DNA testing, which is going to give you everything that you need, and then you can cater to it. So to answer your question again about Alzheimer's, if you don't have Alzheimer's yet, you're going to then prevent, right? And then to prevent that, you want to prevent inflammation in the body. So you're not just going to look at that one gene that's determining that you've got a high chance of Alzheimer's. Then you're also going to look at the gene in your guts. So then you're going to be, if you are missing a gene or got a suboptimal gene in your guts, it's maybe going to motivate you not to binge on a McDonald's meal like every single weekend. You know, it's going to be a little bit more motivation to like not eat terrible food because you know your body.
You got some facts about it.
Yeah, you know, so it's like, you know how your body works. So now you can intentionally choose to do something or not, right? So then my favorite testing beyond DNA testing would be a GI map. So map your entire GI system. Your gut is absolutely everything, right? And then a total tox burden test, which you can get in the US. I believe you can get in the UK. You struggle to get it anywhere else. What a total tox burden test basically is it's a urine test that tests for all fat-soluble toxins. And I'll mention them again. That is heavy metals, microplastics, mycotoxins, which are all your mold toxins, and environmental toxins.
You can test for all of that, and you can know where
so you can see where you're high. So you can see most people know heavy metal tests, and so you could test what you've got in the system. The reason why this is important is because these are all fat soluble toxins. Fat soluble toxins store where? In fat, right? So what's fatty tissue? Bring my wife into this again. Fatty tissue is what? Brain, right? It's why autism cases in kids have gone from 1 in 10,000 to 1 in 26. It's directly correlated to the launch of glyphosate. You don't have to believe me. Go online, just literally go look at a graph where glyphosate launched in the 70s, and you'll see the autism rates as well as brain tumors.
Cancer generally, the increase in cancer.
Completely. You could see it's like it follows it directly, like Bitcoin follows the stock market.
And so the GI testing, what does that test?
That shows the imbalance of the microbiome. So your microbiome, because that is probably one of the first areas that's going to be affected if you do have a toxin in the body and all that. So if you know what strange substance stuck in your body that shouldn't be there, and you know how your stomach has imbalanced, and you know how your body's supposed to work, now you've got 3 legs of data to now be able to take to an expert that can put it together. Or, in my opinion, I think in the next 6 months, you don't need any wellness experts, and I'm shooting myself in the foot because AI is right now, as we sit here, if you know how to use AI at the degree I'm using it, AI is better than any specialist out there. If you prompt it right.
Because it can pull on so many different...
Yeah, so like we're prompting, meaning if you know how to ask contextual questions to AI for people that don't understand, prompting, like the question I'm able to ask AI while Claire was going through brain surgery with her diagnosis and her blood tests, it's like 2 pages long. Amazing. And it was accurate 100% of the time. So I do believe we're at the age of...
So once you've got your data, the AI can give you a lot of...
You can, if you know how to ask the question. Yeah.
So that's what you recommend, those.
Yeah.
And then so we're armed with some of that specific knowledge about ourselves. And then talk us through the rest of the day.
Well, once you have that data, you actually understand how to run your day, what to eat and all that. So like, that's just black and white. Like people say like, how can it be black and white? It is like the data is decades old. Like it's been tested. Like we've helped now over probably about, I'd say the number's just north of 5,000 people using these tests. Like
you're just armed with that knowledge to be like, right, I need to take these supplements. I've got too many microplastics, and now I need to address this. There's maybe toxins in the water, heavy metals in the water. So that gives you these are the things that really aren't going very well. So these are the things that we need to address.
100%.
Right? And then you've got those sort of more standardized, normal health practices that I guess
the standardized ones are just all the ones we all know. But again,
like mobile phones, like processed food, like sugar, the likes that you were talking about earlier.
The problem is 8 out of 10 people will not make the changes, like we were saying earlier.
But if you've got the data, and you're like, wow, I've got this problem, or I've got too much of this, or not enough of that helps you. The juice is kind of worth the squeeze a
Yeah.
little bit more, right?
I believe with the data we have now and the progression of how AI sped up research, so they say research has been sped up, I believe, times 10,000. So for every year that we're doing research by the processing speed of AI in medical research, we've sped up 10,000 times. It's just, we've never seen this before, right? I categorically, and you can mark my words, I categorically, in the next 5 years, if you're 80 and you can live for another 5 years, just push through.
Just hold on.
Because I truly, truly, truly believe in the next 5 years, we are going to be able to choose to live to 250 and over.
There was an ad. I don't know what you think about Brian Armstrong. Are you a fan?
Brian Armstrong, Brian Johnson.
Brian Johnson.
Yeah.
Brian Johnson. Sorry.
I'm a fan of him for different reasons, though. But yeah, I believe this. So in the army, you get the recce, right? Who's the crazy one?
Yeah.
That goes ahead, goes to the top of the peak, and then he doesn't know whether there's war on the other side of that peak. And if there is, he's dead. If there isn't, he calls it.
He's doing a lot for humanity.
I think he's doing a lot to push longevity to the forefront. But what he has done, and this is what I really appreciate, because there's things I don't appreciate about him. Like he's like, he won't go into the sun, you know, he wears umbrellas, you know, but he has got everyone talking because he's been a spectacle of like literally doing blood transfusions with his son and his dad and all that. That has landed him on Netflix, which has landed us talking about longevity.
Yeah.
So not just in my industry now it's in every single industry.
I think it can only be a good thing, right?
It's interesting, that conversation, because I mean, I was vegan for 8 years, right? I was very vegan. We saved animals, and there's this philosophy, ideology, an ego, an identity, right, of being one way. And again, I come down to the fact that I think people need to be willing to be wrong, because, you know, Brian Johnson's great. Then he uses rapamycin, a pharmaceutical, you know, that supposedly boosts longevity. I believe there's a big push, and I'm seeing this in our age group in 30s into early 40s, of going back to an older way of living, meaning a natural way of living. Do we want to live forever? That's the question. Like, do I want to live forever? Because inevitably, if we can choose to live forever, there's going to be 80% of people that will choose not to, because they will still choose to eat the McDonald's burger and the Burger King. So do I want to live in that world, or do I want to just like live for today? I've biohacked so much, and it distracts from living, right? And that's why Claire and I are moving into rural England, because
that will take care of so much of it, right? Just being in your environment.
I just think, like, do I want to eat like organic? You can't say grass-fed because it's lamb-grown. Like, do I want to eat organic beef that's been grown in a machine? Like, would it ever have the same energy? You know, in Ayurveda, they'll call that ojas. You know, in traditional Chinese medicine, they'll call that qi. It will not have that. And we don't eat to fill ourselves. People mistake this. People want to eat a meals and feel full. But that's not why we eat. That's why you get breatharians. Like, there's people that literally live on their breath for years. They literally don't eat. They're breatharians. And they've literally lived years.
So they eat anything.
They did not one thing.
They drink water, or
yeah. I actually saw an article of someone went no eating, no drinking for that long. I mean, I know I've got a friend that dry fasts for 40 to 50 days at a time.
Dry fast,
meaning like no water, like nothing, no liquid, nothing. And literally he regenerates every cell. Like, he comes out looking amazing. He just did it in pyramids in Egypt. But we eat why? Because we're literally transferring a physical element. So like protein, let's say protein, right? So we eat protein, gets broken down into what? We don't eat protein for protein. We eat protein to break it down into amino acids in order to then build it back up into protein to synthesize into our muscles into our body. Okay. But we're actually trying to gain energy from a physical element. It's how can I give a really good example on this? Here's the thing. It's a mindset thing. You can't, I would imagine if you go to the gym, and it's nothing against you, but like if there's 100 kilogram dumbbell, like maybe you could move it, but you're not going to just be able to like lift it up. If your child was stuck under a 400 kilogram car, I guarantee you'll be able to move it. And I can show you so many stories of that happening.
I believe that.
The same thing is when you see split personality disorders. So they've done a research on split personality disorders. Personality A, healthy. Personality B, within 1 split second, he's got stage 4 cancer. He goes back to personality A, he's got normal cancer. He goes back to personality B, he's got stage 4 cancer.
And they're just believing that they do, or they actually do.
They physically have. Now,
sorry, so they're testing.
Yeah, they're testing it, the person, because
when they switch between their two personalities.
One has a disease, one doesn't. So now, is this a belief system? Or are we categorically changing the energy in the body? Because that's what I believe it is.
Well, that's a lot of what Joe Dispenza talks about.
100%.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, there are so many avenues.
But it's why I bring it up, because we are now at a stage where we can choose lab-grown meats, or we can choose vegetables grown in water indoors, right?
But what you're saying is the provenance of where they're actually from, and whether it's been in a live cattle and sort of relaxed and healthy. You know, there is a transition of those of energy almost through
from the soil. Our health is wrecked because of our soil. Our soil is so depleted. You know.
Okay, so I want to squeeze as much like bite-sized tips for people.
Shall I run through my day?
Hang on. The Joe Dispenza stuff, the power of the mind. If you are sick and you have cancer, or you have something wrong with you, you know, talk to me about that. Like, if you don't go the traditional medicine, pharmaceutical drugs, and you want to try and heal yourself from just your mindset and your environment and what you're consuming, how powerful is that, and how much do you believe?
I mean, I can tell you how powerful it is in just an Ironman, you know what I mean? Or like just a Comrades.
Yeah.
My ligaments in my hips snapped 20 kilometers from the end of Comrades, and it was uphill, you know? Did I finish the race? Yes. Why? Because I kept just verbalizing. So like if we talk about the verbalization in your head, you start programming your body. Your body listens to you, right? And this is why Joe Dispenza, he can charge $5,000 to come to his conference where there's 1,000 people, because people are literally in the state of euphoria. Now, whether I think Joe Dispenza is ethical in what he's doing, because he's essentially opening up an energy portal. I'm going to sound very woo-woo now, but he's opening up an energy portal without support thereafter. So like if you go to a conference, it can be dangerous for some, you know, like you hear of psychosis. People get psychosis off hallucinogens, right? Because they're opening up an energy portal. Like it's there, but you're hallucinating through your mind.
And they don't know what to do with it afterwards.
Yeah, so it can, if you are dealing with a lot of trauma, you can literally rewire and repattern your brain, which can be good, can be bad, right? I always suggest everything with health, you need support, because supplements should be regulated like pharmaceuticals, categorically. They're not regulated. There's a 18-year-old that's sitting behind his computer drop shipping vitamin C to someone. There's no regulation, no testing, nothing. You have to ask questions. And so to answer that, I like to speak in stories, right? When Claire broke her hip, I need my sleep, right? I need my sleep. I need 7 to 8 hours to be able to operate. Otherwise, I'm foul and I'm in a bad mood. When Claire broke her hip, I had to literally be her nurse. We lived in Dubai. We didn't have support. So I had to be her nurse, like throughout the night when she had to, because she couldn't move and all that. So I ended up sleeping 3-4 hours a night, max 4 hours, you know, for months. I wasn't tired once.
You were?
I wasn't tired once.
Yeah.
You know, I built a business, so capable. You've probably experienced it as a parent. Like, yeah, you have some days, but you just get on with it.
Yeah.
Right? Now, if you do that for maybe 10 years, maybe it's different. But there's mothers that have had 8 kids and they've done it for 10 years, you know, and they're perfect. They're radiating. It's context. That's what I've always said. So now if I'm able to do that, and this is what I tell myself all the time now when I feel a bit tired, if I've working on a project and I've slept 6 hours, I'm like, Gary, but like, a year ago you slept
You were
2
good.
hours and
Yeah.
you had way more energy, right? And then you're like, oh yeah, I'm right. And then all of a sudden you're good. So it's like, it really is the power of the mind. Now, I do believe there's a limit. I don't believe everyone is energetically, spiritually advanced enough. I'm not, to be able to drink poison and not let it kill you. There's like some instances where yogis are able to demonstrate that and they literally can drink poison, they don't die, and they're perfect, right?
I really like what Wim Hof did with injecting himself with E. coli and using his.
Exactly, same thing.
Yeah.
So there's, again, what is your level of consciousness, right? But if you're not even at level 1 where you're asking, you care where your food comes from and what is sprayed on your food and what the source of your food is, I don't think you've got to even level 1 of consciousness. And I don't mean that disrespectfully, but it's true. So it's like, don't inject yourself with E. coli. You know what I mean?
Okay, I get it. I want to ask you about stem cells because there's lots of different information out there, and a few years ago I was of the mindset, or what I heard from a few different sources, is that if we were teenagers, that was the best time to go and go somewhere, get your stem cells stored cryogenically and pay for it every month. So when we're 60, 70, 80, 90 and really need our own stem cells, something that's really good, because of advancements in healthcare. Also, our kids now, the best things we can do for our kids when they're born is to get some stem cells from them and do the same thing. And one way is milk teeth. There are companies out there that when their milk teeth drop out, you send them off and they store them or they freeze them, whatever. But then I was speaking to someone that was actually in the medical profession. They said there are no stem cells in milk in milk teeth. So I don't really know what is going on or what to believe, what we should be doing. But Brian Johnson injected himself with.
So he did the cholestatin,
But there was someone else. So, should we be storing our stem cells if we're over 35? Is it kind of a bit too late, or can we use them for other people?
Look, the strongest stem cells you want is from a newborn baby, from the umbilical cord. So it's the strongest. Literally, think about it. The umbilical cord it's the cord of life from the mother to the baby. It's what literally grew that baby, like into a baby, like a miracle, right? It's like, I don't think there's a bigger miracle in this world, to be honest, right? That's the lifeline. So obviously, ethically, getting stem cell production from umbilical cord, there are companies that do it ethically, and there's a couple of people are really interested in it. It's not cheap, right? So when you are generating your own stem cells, it is a lot cheaper. When you're talking umbilical cord stem cells that are generated, there are a couple labs, not many, that have still got a source pre-COVID vaccine. You don't want a source that the person had access to the spike proteins in the COVID vaccine at all. So if you are thinking about it, you do need to ask that question, right? I always say whatever's banned in America works, right? So stem cells is not allowed to be injected in you anymore in the US or Canada. So most people have to.
It doesn't need to be yours. It could be someone else.
No, it could be someone else's, right? So, and obviously it gets, the way stem cells are made sure that they are clean, because obviously people are worried that it comes from another human, right?
Yeah.
They basically are, I'll explain like water, like boiling water down until it's like, until there's no particles left.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Right.
They're doing a similar process. I'm not a stem cell expert by no means, but my team has been working on a peptide now that does the same reaction, right, to what stem cell therapy will do, at a quarter of the price, and it's legal now anywhere, and you can inject it into yourself subcutaneously, which is like just under the skin.
This is what you would do if there's nothing particularly wrong. You just want to do it to optimize your health. Is that what you mean?
Yeah. So stem cell treatments can help for many reasons. You know,
what I'm talking about is, let's say you get to 80 years old and, the cartilage in your knee's gone, or something, something specific and serious, where if you have access to your younger stem cells or someone else's younger stem cells, then they can way more easily cure that.
100%. I've seen someone cure literally a torn meniscus within 3 weeks.
Okay, so that's like specific bad things, but what about just general health optimization with peptides and stem cells? Like,
yeah, so you can get I would recommend, if you can afford it, get a stem cell intravenous. Right, so you don't inject into any local spots. You get it intravenous, and then the stem cells. So the stem cells have intelligence. The stem cells then go in intravenously, and it will choose where to go. The stem cells will choose where to go
where it's needed,
where the repair is needed. Right, peptides are an easier way to do it. It is different. A peptide is a chain of amino acids, right? Put together, and there's many different peptides. Most people know Zempic as one. Zempic is a peptide. That's a GLP-1. There's one of my favorite peptides is BPC 157. So BPC 157 will help you get lean, but it helps you recover quick. So like if you're an athlete,
you take stem cells.
I take peptides.
You inject them? Do you inject them? Or how?
Yeah, so subcutaneously, just under the skin next to the belly button. I'll inject it daily.
And that's just general optimization of your...
Correct, but when you can start zoning in. So there's hundreds of peptides that you can get now.
Right.
So what Brian Johnson injected, that follistatin, that cost $25,000. Right, you can only get it done in Honduras, I believe, and now Dubai. And our team is about to launch a peptide that does the exact same thing as that. You don't have to have an antibiotic in case you have a weird reaction to turn it off. If anyone watched the documentary, you actually have to, because it react badly. It can basically kill you. And now we've built a concoction of peptides that does the exact same thing. And it's been in trial for a year, and it worked the same way.
We are on the frontier of what's going on.
Yeah, 100%. And the nice thing about peptide is you can sell it for, like, you can do it anywhere. You can do it yourself. You can do it in your home. It's safe, and
But sorry, if I was to choose to take peptides on a daily basis, I would choose that because it's going to. I know there are lots of different ones, but if you was to say, Charlie, if I say that I'm generally pretty healthy and happy, and you were to recommend I take a peptide, or what would that be for? Like general
always
health.
the belief of recovery. So we always want to recover. So think about it. When we're inflamed, that's when disease comes. When we just want to be regenerated, right? That's health. We want to be regenerated. We don't want to burn out at the gym because we don't want to feel burnt out. We want to be
peptides that help you.
So BPC 157 is probably the most studied. It has got regulation in the US. Meaning it's been banned in the US, which is a really good sign, guys, because it's banned in the US. It actually works.
Yeah. Okay.
So luckily, being out of the US, I don't know where your audience is. You can get it a lot of places. They sell it via injection, like liquid, or via capsules. So what BPC 157 is, it's actually an extraction of gastric juices. Interestingly enough, so you can get BPC 157 pills, and it's the most effective for gut health.
Gut health.
Gut health, particularly because it regenerates the lining. It helps with the gut health. But when you inject it, it's insane for recovery. Like I've been using it for a long time.
Wow. Okay. So you recommend that? So just back onto the stem cells. Should we, if we've got kids, is the milk tooth thing real, or like what's it? Can we be helping our kids by storing their own stem cells?
I do think so. Obviously, it's a luxury to be able to do it, for sure. I would do it. I'd do it for my kids but also because I don't know what's going to come up.
Sure.
I don't know I know that we have no idea what advancements in healthcare are about to happen.
Yeah. So it might become beneficial by actually having your own stem cells, but you don't have to have them. You could use other people's stem cells.
Because right now it's more beneficial using umbilical cord stem cells that's been like extracted in a lab that doesn't have to be yours,
Right.
than using your own, because
Even if you were like 9 years old, it's still better to go and use someone else's from there.
yeah, because 9 years old, you've had 9 years in this very toxic world, right?
Yeah.
Versus an umbilical cord that.
Okay. Cleansing and fasting. I very quickly. So I'm going to talk from personal experience. I completely understand and um, benefit greatly from doing not intermittent fasting, but like a 3 to 5 day fast every 3 or 4 months to reset my gut.
Yeah.
And the repair and the inflammation goes down. It's a reset. You get off you understand the difference between craving and hunger almost. You go through that cold turkey after 24 hours, and then it becomes easier after 2 or 3 days. More recently, when I've tried to do that, I get low blood sugar. There are all these different things out there. I don't know whether to do juices or just water, or what is your recommendation for if someone wants a hard reset, that 3 to 5 day fast for all those good health reasons? What would you recommend? What is it? A juice cleanse? Do you have any companies that you recommend? Are there supplements, or how can you do it in a healthy way? Your blood sugar not crash, or you go into hyper
Hyperglycemia.
yeah, exactly.
Fasting generates stem cells more effectively than anything. After 3 days, your stem cell reproduction is through the roof, right? Same with sauna. I just, like there's other ways of generating stem cells, but with fasting particularly, I believe us humans overthink fasting completely. I think people talk about intermittent fasting. I don't think that's fasting. I think that's just what we naturally should be doing. If you look at all our ancient tribes and cultures, they would not eat after sunset. And if you look at your digestion, it shuts down after sunset. So a calorie after sunset is 2x the amount of calories. Your body holds 2x onto those calories versus before sunset.
Interesting.
So it's why? Because they didn't have electricity. So then they went to bed straight after the sunset, right? So it just makes sense if we start thinking about this, right? But in saying that, that's why I think intermittent fasting is just a natural way of being. So, but here's where you got to be careful. Guys can easily not eat for 16 hours. Some females can. Most females put too much stress onto their system that affects their hormones. So ladies, fasting and eating and exercising is all according to your menstrual cycle, your hormone cycle, your follicular phases, etc. So you're way more complicated than us guys, but for good reason, right? You're like literally growing babies inside of you, which is a miracle.
But if you did want to do the 3 to 5 day,
3 to 5 day, I think it's amazing, and I don't think you need anything. I don't think you should be on supplements. I don't think you should be juicing, and
just water.
I'll have a lot of people saying that that's nuts to say, like people that love done a juice fast. Yes, I have. My purpose of fasting is I want to try and reset, and it's contextual. If you're going to do a 3 to 5 day fast, I say go away into nature. Go on vacation, go do something, because you're resetting your entire body. Your body's having to relearn, like, what is going on? Oh my gosh, they're trying to grab for things. Every cell's like you're going to have cascading events, your blood sugar is going to go up, it's going to go down, you don't want to be stressed on top of that. So you don't want to be around food where your body's smelling someone else's lunch. But really, like,
so how do you manage if you do go into hyperglycemia, and you feel like shit, I need some honey or something, because you feel pain or something, how should you manage that? Like, is that likely to happen? Or
I think you're going to start the baby steps first. So if you've never fasted before, try intermittent fasting, right? First, right? And what I mean by intermittent fasting is like you're not eating for 16 hours. Do that for
no, but I mean, I've done that, but I've also done the 3 or 4 day one before, and it's been fine. But more recently, when I've tried it, I've sort of struggled with my.
How long did you fast for that?
Well, this was just after like 24 hours, 36 hours. So
Okay.
I thought, shit, I'm in trouble here. I need some honey. And then
What happened before when you fasted? Did you have like an intense working period?
when I tried it before.
No, when it reacted badly with you. No.
Sorry, what was I doing before?
Yeah, like leading into the fast.
No, I wasn't particularly stressed. No.
And food wise?
Well, no, I was so.
Yeah, just before.
I can't remember.
So one of the parts about fasting, two parts about fasting that most people forget is the period before and the period after. Right? You can make a fast completely irrelevant if you're just eating as normal all the way to the fast, then fast, and then you kind of, even after one day, you start eating normally.
Really?
You need to start integrating.
Because I'm like, I'm going to have the Mackie D's. I'm going to do a 5-day fast and start set,
Because it's almost like your gut is like a young kid learning again. It's like training wheels, right? So you're going to fast. So when I break a fast, I'll break it with like bone broth, some juices, like green juices, etc. I'll have like lighter food, like easily digestible food.
Coming out the other end.
Coming out the other end.
I mean, that I find easy because
before I do the same.
I've done the hard work. Now I'm not going to put any crap inside my body. I'm going to just keep it really.
But before the same as well.
Before the same, interesting. So that helps stabilize.
Yeah, because think about it, like what's happening is your body's reacting to a shock in the system, right? So something that you're eating now, if you take the digestion of, say, meat, it's 4 days, right? So even if you ate it, you binge on that Mackie D's burger like 3 days before, it's only coming out your system then. But he's like, what's going on? I'm not getting any more food, So like sugar digests really quickly, fats take long, so like nuts and any kind of, we have to look at like the week before and the week after.
Interesting. So just to finish up on that, you would like if someone does want to do a 3 to 5 day fast for the reasons that I just explained, just water only. It's okay.
And I wouldn't do a 5-day fast straight. Like if you haven't done it,
start with a 3-day.
I'll start 2 day.
Yeah.
And then I'll do 3, then I'll start 3 day and I'll incrementally break it up. Okay. I know a lot of people that do like 2 days a month. So every single month they'll do like Sunday, Monday.
Yeah.
Right.
Makes total sense.
And then when you've got enough stamina, because your body has to get used to it. It's like, depending how old you are, like you've been like feasting for 30 years now, and all of a sudden you don't want to feed your body. Like your body's going to go into shock. Not that because it's bad for your body. Will you survive? Yeah, of course. And then the other thing is get support. Like reach out to a friend that has fasted before, so they can like mentally be there for you psychologically, right? Guide you, or an expert that specializes in it. Because here's the thing: you also don't want to detox too quickly. You don't want to detox too quickly, because if you detox too quickly, if you are heavily toxic with heavy metals or microplastics, whatever, and you detox too quickly, your body's going to like, it's essentially, it like bounces off a wall almost, if that makes sense. So it's like you detox and it shoots back into the system. So all the toxins come to the surface and affect you at a heavier level.
Yeah, having that person to speak to, because when you go into something like that and then you're feeling funny, you don't know, you start doubting yourself. Well, am I doing the right thing, or should I have something inside of me? So I think that's really good advice. I want to ask you about IBS very quickly, and then we finish up on your typical day. All right. It's something close to my heart. IBS. I've been struggling with that's what the diagnosis is, but a lot of people suffer from the same thing: inflammation, bloating. That can have all sorts of things, whether it's memory or brain fog or lethargy. I've done all the tests, the traditional medicine and the natural stuff, and one of the tests came back, and I've got something called Candida lacertani. Okay, Candida, I think more people know about. We've got a more rare type of Candida. As I understand it, most of us have some form of Candida inside our guts. But if you've got too much, it loves sugar, and that is one of the reasons why I crave sugar so much. I find it really difficult to not have sugar, and all of the symptoms with the lethargy and the bloating and gas and all of that. And I went to see an alternative medicine person that draws on all sorts of things, and she gave. I'm going to share it to you afterwards while you're here. She suggested quite a radical protocol where there's all these supplements, but a variety of antifungals, but not just one antifungal, like 3 or 4 different ones, because it can kind of come back and change or whatever. And it's kind of like a 2-month thing. And I kind of put it in the drawer, and I'm like scared doing it, to be honest with you, because she sounds great. I was recommended her by something, but it's like I'm putting a lot of like drugs inside of my body. Some of it's natural. There's the supplements and there's the eating diet, but putting like zapping it aggressively. Like I think I can't remember, but ivermectin, for example, I think is in the mix. And, I heard Trump talking about that when COVID, and it's like, I'm like scared of ruining my gut more than it is. And so, maybe you can speak to that specific circumstance, but also generally this, so many people get diagnosed with IBS when really there's something more specific going on.
Yeah, I think the devil's in the detail.
Yeah.
So just to cover ivermectin, I think ivermectin's great. Actually, it's a parasite cleanser. I think it's phenomenal. Like, I think I don't want to risk your podcast here, but like you get a combination of ivermectin and fenbendazole that is literally a cancer treatment. It's so effective.
I've heard that.
Yeah, it's like so effective. Ivermectin is it's a parasite cleanser, and it's I should probably recommend it correctly. We want to look at fungi, and we want to look at obviously parasites in the system. Oftentimes you need a parasite cleanse. Most of us have parasites in the system, and it could be causing what they deem IBS. IBS is too broad of a term, I believe. You've got candida, you're right, sugar does feed it. It's like a kombucha. When you're feeding the SCOBY, you need to add like sugar into it. Now, my side of the court is I ask the question of, I wonder what detox genes you have in your gut, if any. Because I've seen people diagnosed with Crohn's, and then all that's happened is they're missing like GSTM1, right? And GSTM1 is the detox gene of the gut. And they supplement for the missing gene, and they're perfect again. Right? Maybe you're eating the wrong food. Like me, doctors probably would tell me I had IBS as well growing up, but I was eating all the wrong food,
And you found that out from doing the genetic test.
Correct, yeah. Like I'm gluten intolerant, dairy intolerant, and I just cannot do anything with a bean.
With a bean, yeah.
Yeah, so a legume, a bean. So, and when if I eat any of those 3, it's like I'm done. I've all of a sudden got IBS again, It's your body reacting, not liking what it's putting into it. So that's where fasting sometimes helps, but
you got to know what not to put back on it.
But your parasites and parasite cleanses are good as well. So you can double tier that. And I suggest doing a parasite cleanse, and that's probably why I should put you on ivermectin, right?
But I think, herein lies the problem, right? I kind of wasn't sure about it, and I wanted to spend a day or like a lot of hours like researching, calling something up, sense checking, because I wasn't sure. You start second guessing who's giving you advice, if it's mainstream or not mainstream. That's why it's so fascinating talking to you. That's done a deep dive across holistically. But
I'll share with you the prompts that I've created for AI to be able to double fact check specialists.
Yeah, that would be amazing.
I created.
Share that with.
Yeah, of course. I created it while Claire was in hospital now.
Wow.
Because I wanted to make sure that what they were advocating for was accurate. So you don't need to wonder anymore.
Wow, amazing. Okay, let's finish up with your day.
My days do change. Right now, I'm literally moving to the UK tomorrow morning. Guaranteed, my wife is thinking, "Where is Gary?" I haven't packed yet. But my normal day, if I'm just living at home and there's no anomalies, would be I'm normally up by 5 a.m. By the time when I wake up at 5 a.m., I obviously just the normal brush your teeth, get up. I just will drink water. I try and aim for like about 1 liter of very, very clean, pure water. Water quality is very, very important. So I would put some electrolytes in it. I use something called Quinton, which is
This is a South African brand, isn't it?
it's a French brand, but South Africa's just started supplying
I've
it.
seen it.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's amazing. I love it.
Electrolytes, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so I start off with that, and then I read my Bible and pray. I do a bit of breath work, and then I go straight to gym. Do gym, train, walk, whatever the case is. If I'm walking, I'll walk with Claire. I love morning times, and then I'm generally then from that period I'll have breakfast straight after a coffee, and then I will just go straight to about 11. Well, to 11 a.m. I'm unreachable unless it's an emergency, because until 11 I'm in my zone,
Guarding your time.
it's my creative zone. Like that's just when I'm more creative, right? And then from 11, I just, I run 3 businesses and things get crazy. But in between, I always stop for breakfast, and my wife and I always make our own breakfast. We make it together. It's the time we spend it together as a family community. We make our own breakfast, we make our own lunch, and we make our own dinner. Literally every single day.
The community thing and
We slow
togetherness thing, you're slowing it down and knowing where the produce is coming from.
It's the only way. Like I will go eat at a cafe, restaurants. There's very few that have fully organic, regenerative food. That's also in the weighting, macro weighting that I want, because at the end of the day, I don't want a lot of bread when I go out, or not bread, a lot of carbohydrates versus protein. So anyway, and my wife's a chef, so so we do that, and then throughout the day, I'll break my day out into like 45-minute sprints, so I can walk, because of course I work on a computer, and sitting is terrible. So sitting, as soon as you hit the 45 minutes slash of sitting, your entire drainage system in your body stops working. So your body stops draining all the toxins out of it. Yeah. Your lymphatic system just switches off, like goes on standby like a TV.
This is a whole other reason not to sit. I mean, I think most people just think it's for, joints and tightness, biomechanics, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's the main reason why I'll move. So I'll set an alarm on my phone. It goes off, and then I'll walk or change my desk. Or if normally I would have a standing desk, and then like a balance board to stand on my desk and all that. And then I try my very best, obviously not to work like after sunset, but that is difficult again in projects, I suppose. I've got blue light blocking glasses that I always use. And that's as simple as it is. I make sure I hydrate throughout the day, always. I don't have caffeine after 12.
What about radiation and Wi-Fi and Bluetooth?
I use Wi-Fi, of course, but the Wi-Fi 10 feet and more away from Wi-Fi router, it's completely mitigated.
Okay.
Completely. It's very small though. You can get a Faraday cage, which is a cage. It's like a metal cage that can go around a router. Then it can completely block it. My computer setup is all wired. Old school.
To minimize Bluetooth.
I buy Apple computers and I sell the Bluetooth keyboard and my mouse that comes with it. Like literally, that's what I do. What else? That's it. My diet comprises of literally just an omnivore diet. I don't eat too much meat. I eat a little bit. I eat,
I mean, do you get to use a coffee cup with like a plastic lid?
No, great. You prompted me. Good. So I won't touch things like, if I go to a coffee place, I'll never get a takeaway cup. I'll take my own, because literally the cardboard takeaway coffee cup. Go pour water into paper and see what happens. The water goes through paper. How do you think your coffee is?
There's a film inside.
Yeah, there's a film, which is a plastic film.
You can't win, can you?
Yeah. So tea bags. When I have tea at night, we buy different teas and all that, to chamomile and all that. Open the tea bag, pour it in. How do you think the tea bag is not splitting? It's being held together by plastic. Every cup of tea, I think it's got something like billions of particles of plastic.
Seriously?
Billions. So we open up the tea bag, put it in. Once you put the hot water in, the leaves will settle after 5 minutes. You don't have to go.
Everywhere you look, there's
Everywhere. You have to ask. You gotta be so like critical thinking is a must in today's world, right? Even ceramic. This is gonna blow your mind. A ceramic.
Tell me the ceramic cup.
Ceramic coating. So like the shiny coating. It's a chemical coating that goes on there. So you put hot water in there and it's going to come off. Now, do I use it? Of course I do if I go to a coffee shop, but there's ways around it. But that's my simple life. I try and spend as much time outdoors as possible.
Supplements? What supplements are you taking in the morning?
I've got a long list. So I'm slowly changing it. But in the morning, I take berberine. Right. I take NAC for detox. I take amino acids. I take organ blends, so kidney, liver, bovine testicles, really great for guys. It's actually banned in the Olympics because
of testosterone.
It boosts testosterone so much that the Olympics has banned it, but it's not illegal. It's literally just dried hard balls.
Recommend, by the way, testosterone testing for the men in the middle age.
Yeah, 100%, because everyone's low. Everyone's low, but don't take testosterone therapy.
Don't.
Please don't. Go pick up weights. That boosts. Pick up weight, go walk, be in nature.
Or take the supplement that you're taking.
Yeah, you will take that. Yeah.
So what was the first one?
So it's called bovine testicular powder.
No.
Then there's liver and kidney. So like there's a blend of organs. Then I take NAC and I take berberine.
What does berberine do?
So berberine regulates your sugar as well. It's really good with fat loss in the morning as well. And then NAC for detox. And then, I mean, I've got a whole bunch, right? So fenugreek for hair loss. I take magnesium at night. I will take, obviously vitamin D, vitamin E, really good for EMF protection, vitamin E.
Okay.
Vitamin E also makes your blood a little stickier though. So make sure you take vitamin K with your vitamin D. Those are regular. I mean, I can go into all.
So we were having this conversation the other day with my wife's sister and her fiance, and they've been listening to a lot of podcasts on this sort of stuff, and we were talking. They said, there's so much out there, but if you're just going to take 5 things, apparently you're just going to go for 5 things. You've got to take your omegas, L-glutamine, creatine, magnesium, and I wrote it down just before, creatine, L-glutamine, magnesium, omega, and rehydrate.
Okay. So
Is that a pretty good?
I'm going to edit it. I mean, that's a good list.
Yeah. And probiotic maybe.
All of that you can get from food. So if you are very particular with food, you can get that all from food.
All of it, even the L-glutamine and creatine as well.
Creatine. So creatine I love. I'd keep creatine in there. So
creatine, how would you edit this 5?
So I'd keep creatine in there. I'd increase the dosage of creatine. There's really, really good research now showing that 15 to 20 grams of creatine every day is really good with brain health as well.
And do you have to take it throughout the day?
No, just once.
We can just take it
just once. Vitamin D is used in 10% of your DNA and cellular communication. Vitamin D is actually more, this should have been labeled as a hormone. Vitamin D is probably one of the most important vitamins that every single person should be on.
So we should take vitamin D.
Yeah, but then in order to absorb vitamin D, you do need to throw in K. K is excellent. So vitamin K2. All right.
Yeah.
Vitamin E has quickly become one of my favorites because of our exposure to EMFs.
Okay.
Because it protects the cell.
Okay, but you're just adding, we need to delete some to make it easier for people.
You can delete everything besides creatine.
Really? So delete L-glutamine, delete magnesium, omega.
Magnesium is my next one.
So you got to have magnesium. You got to rehydrate. You say you have rehydrate and omega.
But you can get that from food.
Okay. But I don't want to lose my memory. So I'm going to keep omega on that. Okay. But that's fine.
You can get it from eating fish.
True.
So if you have a portion of sardines every day, you get your omega.
Okay. But the ones that you would categorically add is vitamin D, vitamin K, and vitamin E.
Vitamin E and magnesium. Yeah.
So we're half that.
And if you're very stressed, ashwagandha.
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 Yes, I've seen.
Yeah, it's an adaptogen.
I've never known what that.
If we go into the world of adaptogens, you should rather interview my wife. She's an expert in adaptogens, and adaptogens are just nature's source of, I would say, vitamins. They adapt to your body, whatever
Okay.
your body needs.
Well, we've obviously spoken about so much stuff, and I know we danced around a little bit here, but I think there's going to be a big section that people that we can speak off before the podcast goes live, and we can put links and things and make it super helpful for people. So if they want a sort of summary of the things that we've spoken about, that's okay.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Gary,
Charlie,
we went on far too long, but this was a great conversation and something that I'm super interested in. I don't know enough about, so I've been, we could spend another 4 hours talking. And I can see how passionate you are about it. And, I wish Claire all the best. I really do. Good luck with that.
Yeah.
And good luck with your move to England. I hope you find a great place to live in your life there. We'll be watching with interest as you develop your business, and you're continuing your mission, which I think is very admirable. But that's kind of the wrong word. It's fucking great.
Yeah.
Well done.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Cheers, buddy.
Thank you, Charlie.
Well done. Cheers.
Thank you.
If you enjoyed the episode, please share the love and give us a cheeky follow, rating, like, or review. It really does make a massive difference. Don't be shy either to share any of your favorites on social media. This is a truly mission-driven project with the aim of helping to motivate, inspire, and give hope to as many people as possible that change, a better life, a new dawn is all possible. I genuinely love hearing from you and actively try to constantly improve things and bring guests on to address any specific themes. As always, you'll find resources and links from the episode in the show notes. You can follow me on all social media platforms as well as YouTube. And don't forget to check out my website, charlielaw.com. Until next time.